Hello and welcome to That British Homestead. My name's Nick and today we're going to be harvesting some carrots, planting out some onions and some garlic, and of course always weeding, so let's get started. This bed that you can see here is made out of horse manure from one of my friend's stables, and basically I've put it down in roughly about August, maybe even July time. And what I basically did was put the compost down. It's very well rotted, and I directly sowed carrot seeds into it. Over time the carrot seeds have obviously grown. There's been a bit of weedage as well, we're going to talk about that in a minute, but they have really grown so well. I struggle to grow carrots unless it's in compost. That's what carrots like, okay? They just want to grow in compost because they're very weak seedlings. If you have too much on top of them, they just won't sprout, or they'll sprout and die. You know, they can't just push anything out of the way like some other seedlings do. So if basically, I'm just going through here, and as you can see, I'm pulling out a lot of shallots. The shallots will grow obviously the quickest because they are small carrots. So I'm going to go through and pull them out, and I'm just putting them in this organic multi-purpose compost that I've done my greenhouse with, because I like to reuse bags, okay, and I didn't bring any harvesting baskets really with me, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm also doing a bit of weeding. I'd like to note that like pulling these carrots out were like a dream, because it's a no dig bed. Pulling carrots out are so easy, like you are picking them out with like 2 fingers. Even the weeds in this bed are so easy to pull. In a little while you'll see me pull a weed that's on the edge of this bed where there's no loose soil, and oh my days, it is so difficult to pull that out. I had to go and get a fork and actually dig down and pull it out. It was so difficult. So Bailey is like a mad half hour every time I do this. You know that by now. I'm very lucky in my climate because I actually can store carrots in the ground. We're only 9A here, so you can imagine it doesn't get very cold at all. If you're wondering what 9A means, it's a hardiness zone, so you can search it up and see which one you are as well. So we don't get very low temperatures, so our ground doesn't freeze. If our ground doesn't freeze, it means that we can store things like carrots and parsnips and grow things throughout the winter and overwinter them very easily, which is a massive advantage when you're thinking about filling that hungry gap and spreading your harvest over the 4 seasons. Because if you didn't have such a light winter, then you would probably struggle to grow things over winter. I don't know, I've only ever grown in this climate, so it is very exciting having things like that available so that we can do different things and store them in different ways, because we don't have a root cellar at home. One of our friends is actually going to build a root cellar on their property, which is very exciting for us all, but we aren't in the position to do that. So if I was going to store these at home, I would put what I call sterile compost, which is compost that you would get from a supermarket or from a garden centre. Just make sure it's a little bit damp, and then fill up one of those vegetable crispers with it and just make sure it remains damp. Or you could do it with wood shavings as well, that's absolutely fine. But I'm lucky enough to be able to store them in the ground. But like I said, every so often I'm going to come up here, pick the carrots that I wanted, and then I'm going to make sure that I am only picking what I need so that they are the maximum freshness, and it gives the other ones that are slightly smaller time to grow on, so that when I come back to harvest them they are that little bit bigger, which is very exciting. I know. These are all different types. Mostly what I'm going to be harvesting today is the Paris market, which is a circular orange carrot, and also the chantenays, which are rainbow chantenays, so they're all different colours, and I'm just going to be pulling them as well. I think there are some ox hearts as well just in the mix, and they are a shorter and fatter carrot, and they kind of remind me of a very large sort of size of a chantenay, if that helps you, if you know what that is. I'm also going through and doing some weeding. Like I said, it's very easy to do weeding in this bed, but I wouldn't say that it is no weeding. Like if I put black plastic, it would be a lot less weeding to do. However, I cannot grow carrots with the black plastic, it just doesn't work, so it is a limitation for that. I'm also going to be putting out some stinger nettles. These are stinger nettles that have come up that are not in the no dig bed. They look like they are, but I promise you it's behind the no dig bed. So it's just something that's grown up from next door, sort of thing. The stinging nettles are rhizomes, so they have like long runners and they will grow from then. So if there's any, you get them from your neighbours. They have really deep root systems. So what I'm going to do is sort of keep on pulling them as much as possible and just weaken them. Over time, you will win. It will be a long, frustrating journey until then. But it's just one of those things that happens. You always get one sort of weed that you'll have to battle against. And it's got so much better over the last year already, and over time it will get so much better again. Now that my allotment's getting so much horse manure, I'm probably going to transition all of my beds to no dig. It is one of those things that I will do bed by bed by bed. I've already done 2 beds, including this one, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you have to remember that they are incredibly heavy. I've also horse manured 1/2 of this allotment, so I have only a few more beds. I've got Jasmine's bed to do, the one next, so I've got about 3 or 4 beds left of this allotment to make sure that I finish before I move on to the next allotment, and I will be converting them all to no bed dig as long as I have access to that horse manure by either getting it from the allotment or getting it from my friend's stables. I've seen the benefit of this horse manure already. Like when you dig down into the horse manure, even just to pulling out these carrots or pulling the weeds, you see so many worms, and that's always a really good indicator to like the quality of your compost. If you don't see any worms, you have to think to yourself, well, why don't the worms want to be there? It's because it doesn't have very much organic matter. The more organic matter you have in a given area, the more worms you're going to get. When I first got this allotment and you were digging down, there was no worms, none. Like you wouldn't really see them, and now they're ones that you see all the time. I know that we've put a load of more worms in with the horse manure, because you do get quite a few worms with there, but they are somewhere that the worms want to be, because it's like worm heaven in there, and it's really good for the plants, because obviously they've got that relationship with the plants where the worm is breaking down old material so that it lives and eats and is merry. And worm castings, which is a very posh way of saying poo, is fantastic fertilizer for your plants. So you are making a load of fertilizer continuously for your plants as they break down whatever's left in that compost. So it's a really, really, really great way of ensuring that you have that sort of biodiversity in your beds of any description, and you do need that. Now, this is what I was talking about. This is the weed that's not in the no-dig bed. It was very difficult to get out, oh my goodness. And I was like tugging it and pulling it and trying not to break the root of it. And it was just very, very, very difficult to get out of the bed. This is the difference between growing in a non-dig bed and growing in one that is or has been dug quite severely. You do have a very compacted soil structure, because it's been about 70 years of people digging and not putting anything back into the soil. I think I say this every single time I speak to you guys, but it is something that you do need to sort of bear in mind and understand, is that you are going to have a allotment, or most people have an allotment that are going to give it up, haven't been able to keep up with either the weeding or the digging, or something's got to them and they haven't been able to keep up, maybe the weeds. It is quite daunting. So I do understand that you do get quite compacted soil, but it's really nice to get to the point where your soil is really lovely and light and fluffy. Even no dig beds, you can walk on no dig beds, it's all good, because the soil structure is not being damaged. You are preserving the soil structure, and you're just laying fresh compost on top as a sort of mulch. Being said, unless your soil is completely sterilised, like I did in the greenhouse, you're going to get weed seeds, okay? That's completely normal, but the weed seeds does add some bits to your soil. Now, this soil had a lot of thistles, roots in it, and therefore, obviously, you get quite a few thistles. The thistles aren't a big problem, because once again, because the soil is so light and fluffy, you just pick them out. Chickens love them. I've actually just been, it's actually like complete darkness, it's like 8 o'clock now. I've just gone to see my chickens, and I kind of just go down there and check that they're okay every once in a while, because I don't know, I just feel like I should go down there and go, well, you're still a chicken. And I just thought to myself I'd pop down there this evening after a lovely day of being at an allotment. I thought, oh, I better go check on them. Anyway, so these are the Chantenay carrots and a few other carrots that I'm pulling up. It is quite difficult to grab them, but I've kind of sowed them a little bit too thickly, so this is me thinning them a little bit. I am pulling quite a few out because I do plan to eat them over the next few days. As you can see, some of them are a little bit twisted at the bottom, and that's because they've just gone ahead and hit the cardboard. Nothing is harmed by that. They're fine. Just because your carrots are not exactly like the ones you get from the shop doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. I remember seeing this Facebook post, and the lady was like, I don't really want to eat the things I grow because they're a little bit malformed. That is absolutely fine. You don't have to have a perfect looking carrot for it to be incredibly tasty. In fact, I find my strange looking carrots far tastier than the ones I can buy in the shops. So just bear that in mind. I know that, especially when I started canning, it was one of those things that I was really nervous about trying, because I was just convinced myself that I would end up poisoning myself, but it just isn't the case. And it's one of them things that you do need to try and have. It's the same as duck eggs. When I first got duck eggs, I was like, oh my god, I don't know if I want to try these. And I was thinking to myself, well, why not? Why do you feel like this? It's silly. So I did try it, and it's been great. So I always think that whenever I've got something new to try, I always think, why aren't you willing to try it? It's because you're not used to it, so try it. That's my advice. And especially when it comes to growing your own, if you are one of those people that don't like trying new foods, this is the time that you can, because I feel like food that you buy in the shop that's different and new, if you don't like it, you're like, well, you know, oh, I don't like that, I'll never eat again. But when you grow something, this is not really the best sort of advert for growing your own, but when you grow something, you don't like it, you're like, oh, well, I've got loads of this, I'm just going to try it again and again and again. And eventually you will either learn to like it or find a way to like it. It's a little bit like me and parsnips. I have this sort of, I want to be the sort of person that eats parsnips. I don't know why, I've just decided I will be that person one day. I hate parsnips, and I have parsnips growing in my front garden, so I will try parsnips again this year. Someone's given me extra recipes for them because apparently I'm not cooking them correctly. Let me know down below how you how you cook them, and let me know if I'm doing it wrong. What I've done is I turn them into chips. I've made loads of things with them. The best thing that I've had is parsnips crisps. I don't mind them like that, but there's only so many crisps that one can eat in one sitting, so it's one of those things. But I will be trying them again this year for Christmas, and I will try to enjoy them as I do every year, hopefully successfully, but we'll see. I've got to roast them really well so that they are very, very, very crispy, and I'm going to add honey to them, I think it is. I'm not sure, but that's what I think. I have to reread what the person said, so I'm going to try that this year and see how it goes. I really want to like parsnips. It's a little bit like parsnips and kale, just two things that I really want to enjoy, but I will do. I was always told as a kid, you must try something 10 times before you can say I don't like it, so I stick to that. This is the second no dig bed that I've made, and it is just well rotted horse manure, and I'm going ahead and putting in my onion sets. I'm doing 3 lots of onion sets, and these ones I've just got from the allotment store. I think one's called White Winter and one's called Red Blood, and the other one starts with S. I think it's Sokashina or something like that. All really, really good types of onions. I'm growing from sets. I'm still going to grow them from seed this year, but I really like putting something in the ground and have something to be growing. You have to remember that every so often we do get checks on our allotment, and we have to have so much of the allotment growing, so I have to make sure that I've got so many beds always with things in there, even if like it doesn't matter what time of year. So I'm going to make sure that I have that, so that when they come round they can see that I've got this bed all seeded and I've got other beds all got little seedlings in. So at the moment I'm okay for seedlings and things like that, but once again it's just one of those things that I like doing things that people tell me to do. I try to do it really well. It's just my sort of personality type. So I'm going to make sure that I have at least a few more beds in and done, because I've got this one and the one behind me is all finished and planted up for the year. So, well, for the autumn anyway. So I want to make sure that I have that. I'm also going to do some more garlics, because I like to have quite a lot of garlic. I adore dark garlic. Garlic's probably my favourite thing. Garlic and onions are one of my favourite eating things, because I eat them in everything. Garlic and onions are like mandatory. Whereas tomatoes, once again, I eat that in everything, but they're not got like the place in my heart as garlic and onions, only because garlic and onions I use in literally every single dish. Tomatoes are my favourite thing to grow by far. The most interesting thing to grow, the most rewarding thing to grow, and just fantastic eating in every single way. But garlic and onions are like the bread and butter of the culinary world, aren't they? I couldn't imagine living life without them, because they're so important to all of my cooking. So I'm going to make sure that I have enough onions for the year. I will make sowings now all the way until spring, so that I have them throughout the summer, because they are quite long crops, so they won't be ready until summer. So I'm going to make sure that I have loads, and then when I pull them up I'm going to replace them with something. For example, some wintry vegetables, or that I want to do probably cabbages or cauliflower or something like that, because they'll be pulling up in the time that I can put in some winter cabbages, I think, something like that, and just cover this bed with netting, because remember we have to worry about the birds. I'm really excited about kind of cramming more things into the beds so that they are able to produce more. And I'm hoping that now I've got the no dig, I can do that, because where you have the black plastic you have to be really mindful of how many holes and where you're digging, etc. And the ground was so hard and stiff and difficult to work with, whereas this, dream. Absolute dream. As you can see, I'm just plugging these in, so easy peasy lemon squeezy. So I'm going to go and do quite a few beds of these. I'm just adding some more garlic because I have a little bit of space. These are all hard neck varieties. Once again, these are the seeds that I've saved. I'm kind of getting to the end of them now, but I think I have just enough to do at least another bed, because like I said, I do eat a lot of garlic, and I'm also growing the garlic for this year, and I'm growing it for seeds for next year. So it is quite a lot of garlic that we'll be sowing, if you can imagine. I don't know how much you guys grow, so let me know if you do down below. Maybe I do quite a lot. I do about 160 cloves roughly, from now till spring. So that is how many we have, which is quite a few, I have to say, because we eat a lot of garlic. I make garlic flavoured oils and things like that, and of course I need some for seeds for the next year, the best ones are saved for seeds. I do think that because we were knocking down my garage, etc., that some of my seeds were lost for this year, so I might have to sort of dig into my eating ones and see if I can find any of the good, well, best quality to go into the seed stock as well.